Hello.
Our story begins inside the world of dreams and nightmares. Skywalker's eyes opened and he saw his master in front of him. Kenobi was surrounded by fire and he was backing away. His lightsaber was pointed forward and his face wore a look of worry. One that said, "Don't come any closer. I don't want this to continue." Anakin, without control over his body, moved forward without hesitation, jumping down to a pipe and balancing on it. He moved forward, striking at Obi Wan. Their moves had been rehearsed 1,000 times in their spars, and repeated once more over the fiery abyss. Obi Wan continued back before jumping off and landing. Skywalker again followed, leaping down behind his instructor and swinging his blade forward, matching Obi Wan's in the middle. The two of them continued as Anakin smacked his teacher in the face, and their blades were thrown together as a fiery volcano exploded behind them. Skywalker jolted from his sleep when this happened. The fire, the pain, the torment, why? Why would he ever fight Obi Wan like that? He knew he could be temperamental, and he knew he could pick fights that weren't necessary, but this was uncanny. Anakin looked over the bed and rolled off of it. His skin trembled at the thought of so intensely fighting with Obi Wan. What could have been done or said to make them turn on each other? From what he could tell, it seemed like he was the agitator of the fight, because Kenobi wasn't trying to fight with him. Anakin rubbed his head and walked out of the room he was in, as he moved into the main chambers of Padme's residence. When he got there, he sat down in the darkness and looked over the city of Coruscant. He had come to see the city as peaceful, even though a lot of trauma resided within the city. Anakin took a deep breath and tried to push the memories of nightmares from his mind. He didn't want to think about it. Instead, he focused on the better side of his relationship with Obi Wan. But to his dismay, he couldn't find it. He was locked in on the nightmare he just escaped from. His thoughts revolved around the fight with Obi Wan, not the 13 years of pleasant memories before. It was comparable to remembering something embarrassing and not being able to rid the thoughts of that embarrassment. Skywalker's face scrunched up with disgust as he tried to avoid these thoughts. He then felt Padme's presence. She was up, and he probably woke her by getting out of bed. She was a light sleeper. He turned, and she asked what he was doing, or if he was okay. He nodded his head, but she knew that wasn't true, and she waited for him to let it out. He didn't, so she asked what got him to move away from their bed. Anakin sighed, looking out to the city and telling her that he had a dream. A vision, perhaps. One in which he and Obi Wan were fighting over life and death. She asked what that was supposed to mean, and he wasn't sure. All he knew is that it was eerily similar to the dreams he had about his mother before she died. He feared that some break in the bond between he and Obi Wan would commence. Padme reassured him, telling him that neither he or Obi Wan would let that happen. They both loved each other too much to allow something to break them apart. Anakin agreed, but it felt so real. It felt like it was actually possible. She then asked him what in the galaxy could divide them. They were a strong duo. They broke through the growing pains of Anakin's years as a student, and they were like brothers now. Obi-Wan often referred to them as brothers too. It wasn't like there weren't reasons for him to say that. They were always around each other, constantly growing as a unit. And sure, they may have not had Ahsoka with them for the last couple of months, but they still managed. Anakin even told her numerous times about how good Obi-Wan was with him after Ahsoka left the Order. Anakin obviously left out the key detail that he was the agitator of such a duel, and while he went back to bed with her, he considered that abstract point. If Obi-Wan wasn't starting the duel, why was Anakin starting it? There had to be a reason. Skywalker started running through ideas, trying to figure out what it was. Maybe Padme was cheating with Obi-Wan on him. No, that couldn't be feasible. Or could it? No. Anakin had gone too far with his overthinking stuff. He didn't get much sleep following that weird thought he had within himself. Skywalker tried to shoo those thoughts from his mind. It didn't work, but exhaustion eventually got the best of him. In the morning, Skywalker was across the city, and inside of Master Yoda's meditation chamber. The Grand Master was listening to Anakin, who made the request to see him. Yoda just watched Anakin as he confessed he was having visions about conflict, one that existed between himself and someone close to him. He wasn't sure how to interpret it, or how to handle it. Yoda told young Skywalker to be careful when sensing the future. If he wasn't careful, then he might act erratically. These visions he was having were troubling, sure, but in Yoda's mind, he believed that Anakin was worrying too much. Of course, had Anakin told Yoda that he was having a vision between himself and Obi-Wan, then he may have changed his tone. But this initially didn't seem like the biggest thing ever. By conflict, Yoda naturally assumed Anakin was talking about a fight, one held verbally, nothing breaking out into a lightsaber duel. Anakin did hint at it, but despite all of his years of being a Jedi Grand Master, Yoda wasn't a mind reader, and he wasn't going to go into Anakin's mind without his permission. It was Anakin's job to open up, because Yoda gave him all the room to speak. Anakin gave some more details, alluding to the style of the fight, and to Yoda he figured this might be something coming soon. He knew what the Council planned on doing. Skywalker would become a Council member, but not a Master. Perhaps this would be in relation to that. This did make Yoda consider changing things around, but he knew better than to react to a vision. The Force was always in motion, so if he moved on a vision had by Skywalker, he could make things better or worse. He didn't know, so he let everything continue as planned. Following, Skywalker would lead the discussion with disappointment. Anakin would join the High Council after an earful from Palpatine. He wouldn't be promoted to the rank of Master, and Obi Wan would inform him of his secret mission. Anakin, after all these combined events, was a little on edge, and because Obi Wan was the one to assign him to his secret mission, he wondered if this is where the relationship would fracture. Not for nothing, he was really pissed off. He was upset with the Council and annoyed with Obi Wan, but because of his vision, he wasn't sure how far he was willing to go when he said that he was annoyed. He wouldn't fight Obi Wan over this, so what gives? Maybe Yoda was right. Perhaps the future was always in motion, but that still didn't seem right. Instead of being outwardly annoyed with Obi Wan, he asked to speak with him. The Jedi Master was receptive, and the two of them would talk about it for a short moment. Anakin wanted to spend more time with Padme, but he needed to voice his concerns to Obi Wan first. Kenobi and he sat down inside the Jedi archives. There was a table in the back of the library where no one else was. It was pretty secluded so they could speak in peace without disrupting anyone else. Kenobi asked what was bothering him, and Anakin told him that he had a vision, one of which the two of them had a fight. Kenobi asked what it was about, and Anakin didn't know, but he feared that it might happen. Obi-Wan reassured him by telling him that he wouldn't ever fight him. They argued, they didn't get along sometimes, and that was natural. Sometimes friends fight. Nothing was ever meant to be perfect, and it was through those imperfections where relationships grew. He told Anakin to not worry about those visions, because he was telling him right here and right now that he wouldn't ever fight with him. He loved Anakin like a brother, and nothing would ever change that. He just reminded Anakin to trust the Force and the process. Anakin smiled warmly and thanked his master. The two of them got up and Obi-Wan put his hand around Anakin's shoulder and laughed, telling him that he wouldn't want to fight him anyways. Skywalker asked why, and Obi-Wan mockingly said that his powers doubled since the last time they sparred. Skywalker laughed and pushed Obi-Wan playfully, telling him that he was in the moment. Obi-Wan rolled his eyes with a grin, telling Anakin that he was always in the moment. The two of them would break free from each other as Skywalker returned to Padme's residence to spend time with her. Initially, he was going to speak about not trusting the system they fought for, but Obi-Wan restored his faith quite a bit. Instead, their conversation was relatively exciting. They kind of picked up right where they left off the night before. The two of them picked a number of baby names. Since they didn't want to know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, they came up with two alternative names, Luke and Leia. But they revisited the conversation, just in case there were any other names that came up. Qui-Gon's got thrown in and so did Shmi's, but truthfully, Luke and Leia were perfect. They weren't confined to Tatooine and Naboo names. They were more so neutral names, ones that would be unique for both sides of the family, and also, they'd be connected solely to their future child, not someone who passed away before. Though, just in case, they added two other names, because they wanted to have them in the circulation in the circumstance the child didn't look like a Luke or a Leia. Hey, sometimes names just fit the mold, sometimes they don't. Couldn't hurt to have alternatives. These alternative names were Noah and May. Anakin would visit Palpatine in the Opera House, where he was feeling much better. The thoughts of fighting his mentor were gone. His relationship with Padme was strong, and his fear surrounding pretty much everything, aside from Ahsoka, had dissipated. Then he spent time with Palpatine, who eagerly tried to convince Anakin otherwise. Though this wasn't done openly. This was done through subtle hints that not everything was alright. Each sentence was a way to convince him to think differently about the predicament, not just with Obi-Wan but with the war. Palpatine had been planting these nightmares. While they were supposed to be about losing Padme, they morphed, and Palpatine could tell that they did. He couldn't just use the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, so instead, he came up with another Sith legend, one that was based in truth but changed to give Anakin the belief that he could succeed. He told Anakin about the rule of two Sith, picking a random duo from the last millennium and telling a story. One where the master was limiting the student, one where the student had enough of the limitations and reacted to it. Palpatine reminded Anakin about the fact that these limitations were also shared by Obi Wan and the Jedi Council. But he didn't stop there, because Palpatine, above all, knew that the only way to lure Anakin in was by gifting him the chance to have a power unattainable by the Jedi. The power, as Palpatine described, was the ability to drain Force. The Sith Lord had to lie a little bit, but this was a course correct, and he knew Skywalker wouldn't join him without having an extra incentive. So he promised that with Force drain, Skywalker would be able to grow his abilities by taking from others, though Anakin seemed kinda turned off by this. Palpatine could see the look of confusion and almost disgust, so he changed it up a little bit, reminding Anakin that he wanted to be the best of the Jedi, but to become the best, he needed to become something more than what a Jedi could be. Anakin shrugged. He didn't know. It didn't feel right. The mixture of good feelings with Obi Wan and Padme, as well as the hypnotism from Palpatine, left him confused. The issue was the fact that Palpatine was playing at what Anakin wanted for the last 13 years, to be the best Jedi, and it was kind of working. He could feel himself becoming convinced to actually listen to his elder friend, so he caved, and asked if it was possible to learn the power of Force drain, and it was told to him, not from a Jedi. Anakin left the Opera House confused, because his frustration wasn't with Obi-Wan, rather the Jedi Council, so the desire to learn these powers didn't come from disagreements with Obi-Wan. Skywalker had a lot to think on as he returned to Padme's residence and slept on it. Again, he would have nightmares of fighting with Obi-Wan. This time, though, he and his master were fighting over a lava river. He could hear dialogue, and from it, he told Obi-Wan that this was the end for him. Skywalker jumped to Obi-Wan's platform and they continued fighting, their blades smashing together. Every time their blades hit, Anakin twitched. It woke Padme up as she watched her husband toil in his sleep. These visions were forcing him to struggle. He then watched Kenobi dismount, and from his own mouth came the words, "You underestimate my power." Anakin jumped up. His eyes were bloodshot and he looked at Padme. She was startled by his reaction and asked what it was. He didn't know. It was like everything Palpatine said made sense. The Sith Lord was right. Anakin craved power, and he just told Obi-Wan that he underestimated him. This wasn't a fight between the Council and Anakin, rather a fight between master and apprentice. Anakin and she spoke about it again, and he decided that he would make things right. The following day there'd be a council meeting. Obi-Wan was assigned to chase down General Grievous on Utapau. Anakin was to remain here. To Anakin, this wasn't good enough. Despite his desire to talk to Obi-Wan about these visions again, they didn't have a chance to actually bring it up in conversation. So when Obi-Wan left, after telling Anakin he was very proud of him for how strong and wise he'd become, Anakin felt both whole and empty at once. It was caught on the tip of his tongue for some reason. He didn't know how to say it out loud without sounding like he lost his mind, especially since it involved Palpatine. So Obi-Wan walked down the ramp to his Jedi Star Cruiser and prepared for liftoff. Anakin looked down. He couldn't let this fester any longer. Were there easier alternatives? Yes. Was this Anakin? Also yes. Skywalker ran down the ramp and snuck into Obi-Wan's ship as it was lifting off. Of course, when Obi-Wan and Cody were going through their plans of attack, Anakin walked in and surprised everyone. He apologized for sneaking on, but he was here to help. Obi-Wan looked at Cody, who just blankly looked back. Kenobi asked if he was assigned to this, and Anakin smiled, telling his master that he was. Obi-Wan knew this wasn't true, but why not? He was already on the ship, there was no time to waste. They were about to take 2 Jedi starfighters, but instead decided to move the entire fleet. The scouts had to be correct, being that they were Palpatines, so they might as well jump into Separatist territory. Plus, Anakin didn't want to have his conversation with Obi-Wan over communications through hyperspace. But the conversation would have to wait. Kenobi still had to be a general before he could switch up to have this conversation Anakin so badly needed to have. Honestly, Anakin was fine waiting. At least it was going to happen. They spoke about the vision and fight before. Anakin just had more to add to their conversation than he did before. He had a whole conversation with Palpatine, another wave of nightmares, and more questions, all of which they would get around to. Kenobi found the stuff regarding Palpatine to be troubling, but their conversation continued to drift away from it. Not out of ignorance, it was just a fact that Palpatine's little Force drain antidote wasn't as pressing as their conversation about this duel. It was fierce, and Anakin recalled it as if every moment had already happened. Kenobi was a really good listener, which made this easier for Anakin, but their talk was disrupted when they arrived at Utapau. They had to move quickly, and because they moved the entire fleet, the Pa'uns were forced to go back into hiding or fight back, as the clones blockaded the surface of the planet and the Jedi chased after General Grievous. Their quick action also led to the capture of the Separatist Council. It was a triumph the clones didn't expect to have. Regardless, Obi Wan and Anakin were forced to chase after General Grievous after their conversation. They used clone speeders to do so, because they didn't get a chance to borrow the giant iguanas. Master and apprentice sped behind General Grievous and pushed him away from the edge, using the blasters on the edge of their speeders to do so. This meant that their high-speed chase went further into the surface of the planet, rather than towards the massive chasms where the battle was taking place. They got so far separated it was just the two of them, shooting at General Grievous on his pod. But the good general wasn't going to give the Jedi a chance to win. He ignited an electro staff and flung it in the Skywalker speeder, as he jumped to Obi-Wan's and held on, as his speeder exploded behind them. They continued shooting at Grievous's pod until they came up onto the flat surfaces of the planet. Grievous avoided these shots until he dropped a pipe that slammed right into their blaster barrel and they jumped off. The trigger was firing already, which caused a jam and then a combustion. The two Jedi looked as Grievous laughed and rolled away from them, though they could tell that he wouldn't be getting very far. Obi-Wan tried contacting Cody, but their signal was shot, so they had to follow on foot. Their blaster shots hit, and Grievous's pod was falling apart. He'd be on foot until they found him or they got reinforcements. They were completely alone, and no reason to split up at this point. The two Jedi continued forward, following an oil trail and then parts of the pod that slammed down and crashed. The Jedi were on foot for hours when they eventually did find the pod, which meant General Grievous was far ahead of them. Though there was a benefit, Grievous's feet left holes in the ground, so they could track him. Since it was becoming night and their signal was still shot, they decided to set up a temporary camp. Here they would talk like they did months before, on the same planet. Obi-Wan and Anakin had a long history together, one that spanned each of their lives, and Obi-Wan asked Anakin if he really believed they would fight. Skywalker shook his head. He told Obi-Wan that he feared that more than anything. So Obi-Wan asked if that was why he went to Palpatine. Anakin shook his head. He was invited. Obi-Wan asked about all the times before that. Kenobi knew the two of them had a tight bond, but sometimes Obi-Wan didn't feel like he was good enough to be a teacher. He was hiding a lot more of the truth, because a lot of the time, he didn't feel as if he had done a good job. Anakin declined these thoughts. They disagreed. They were growing pains, but Anakin believed Obi-Wan was as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu. He was grateful to be his apprentice. Kenobi asked if these visions came from a place of frustration in their relationship, and this too was denied. Anakin felt that there were ups and downs, but during the Clone War, aside from the faking of his death, there were mostly ups. Obi-Wan apologized for that, perhaps for the first time ever since it happened. Anakin told Obi-Wan that he didn't agree with it, but having had the time to reflect, he could understand. The two of them continued further into their conversation, reflecting on positives and negatives in their relationship. Obi-Wan learned more about the dreams, and he told Anakin that even if Skywalker wanted to fight him, he couldn't ever raise a blade to him. He loved him with all of his heart. There was no one more important in the galaxy to Obi-Wan than Anakin. That was true, and Anakin was surprised by this answer. But Obi-Wan went a step further, revealing the truth. He told Anakin that he knew about Padme, but he never said anything because it made Anakin happy. This really warmed Anakin's heart, to see that the fight conjured up in his head was nothing but that, a conjuration. As they were talking, there were shifts through the Force, and while they were seen as odd, it became apparent that these shifts were in a response to the appearance of General Grievous. He saw their camp and believed he could sneak up on them and kill them in their sleep. The two Jedi got to their feet and ignited their lightsabers. They were both exhausted, but they needed to stand together and destroy this monster. It would bring peace to the galaxy. General Grievous was more machine than man. He could handle being a little bit tired. He threw himself at the Jedi and they defended themselves. His blades were extremely quick, using all 4 of his lightsabers. Kenobi and Skywalker defended themselves. The droid general pushed a heavy assault, as they used each other as a defense. Kenobi was the master of keeping Grievous at bay, which really helped Anakin out. He was very skilled, but Grievous's algorithms were designed to counter Jedi like Anakin. Master and apprentice stood side by side, in the shadow of their fire. The skylight was giving them vision in the darkness, as Grievous used his lightsabers to thrash and pull. Anakin ducked out of the way before being kicked backwards, as Grievous soloed out Obi-Wan, hoping to kill Kenobi first and then kill Anakin afterwards. Obi-Wan backpedaled away, keeping his distance before slipping under a swing and cutting General Grievous' hand off. He continued forward, jabbing at Grievous as Anakin joined their fight. The two of them moved around Grievous as he swung in 2 different directions, spreading out his attacks. The two Jedi saw this as a golden opportunity. Anakin blasted Grievous in the back as he slid forward. Obi-Wan jabbed again, and then avoided a counter. The droid general tried to hit Obi-Wan, but Anakin thrusted his blade forward into Grievous' back, and shoved him to the ground. Now the issue was getting a pickup. Without any reason to assume there was anything wrong in the galaxy, they tried to contact Cody again, and they got through. He was sending reinforcements. Anakin and Obi-Wan looked down and smiled, as Anakin shoved Obi-Wan playfully and told him it was all about double the power. Without it, they wouldn't have won so easily. Obi-Wan just smiled as their LAAT landed in front of them. Cody jumped out and told them the war had been won, and they were confused. They followed him into the gunship as it lifted off towards the capital ship. When they entered the bridge, they joined a galaxy-wide meeting. The Chancellor betrayed the Republic. He was killed by Mace Windu and Kit Fisto. Even though Anakin wasn't there, the Council still had to act. They weren't happy with him, but after Sidious killed Agan and Saesee, they could kind of forgive him. Palpatine was a Sith Lord, and he was trying to manipulate Anakin. Truthfully, the Council deduced it was probably best that he wasn't on Coruscant when they fought Palpatine. He would have used his dark tricks against Anakin, and who knows how that could have gone. Regardless, the Jedi Council was informed by Commander Cody that the Separatist leaders were captured, due to Anakin suggesting they go with a frontal assault. And now they also had evidence that General Grievous was destroyed. The war was over. It was time to come home. The battles of Kashyyyk, Ked and Nemoria, Megiddo, Boz Pity, and Felucia were turning into victories, as well as numerous others across the galaxy. The droid forces had no leadership, no access to their reserves, and they were losing every major battle across the galaxy. The Separatist government was forced to surrender, and the Jedi Council negotiated that. It was a very chaotic transpiring of events. Also, the Separatist Council didn't know about the reserves, which is why they didn't activate them. And just because the Jedi ended this war, it didn't mean that the people of the galaxy were happy with them. It was an outrageous act to do what they did. The Council would handle it with care. Skywalker and Kenobi would return to Coruscant to assist, while the 212th held down the fort at Utapau. Anakin would be able to be with Padme when she gave birth to Luke and Leia, the names they settled on, and be able to enjoy a relatively peaceful period of life. The Jedi were in trouble, but the Senate wouldn't act against them. As revealed, there are many things about the clones that the Jedi and the Senate didn't know, and these revelations would make the actions of the Jedi more understandable and even heroic. Despite Anakin seeking away to Utapau, the Council would forgive it. Kenobi, again, had a very large part in this. He knew that Anakin being away from Coruscant would be better for everything. It was semi-planned and semi-lucky on Obi-Wan's part. He knew that Anakin was burning to talk to him before he departed. He dragged the conversation on so that Anakin would feel the desire to follow along. Obi-Wan was just very grateful that he did sneak into the ship. Had he not, Obi-Wan would have had to go and visit Padme to make right of his own secret plan. Kenobi believed, especially after Anakin showed disinterest in the Palpatine mission, that it'd be best if Anakin was away from the Council and the mission itself. He was right, and it was his motives that saved Anakin from any punishments, none of which would have been that harsh as it was. The children would be shown to Obi-Wan, which he was very appreciative for, not ever expecting Anakin to let him in on the little secret. While Obi-Wan was visiting the twins, Maul was brought back to the temple by Ahsoka. She and Rex would also be able to see the twins before they returned to their own mandates. Yoda once again wanted to speak with Ahsoka, offering her a chance to rejoin the Jedi Order, now that the war had run its course. She accepted, becoming a Jedi Knight. Ironically, as she accepted, Anakin was preparing to renounce his seat, and his position within the Jedi Council and Order. But before he could do that, Yoda congratulated him. Anakin was confused, because Ahsoka wanted it to be a surprise. Yoda told him that he was now Master Skywalker of the Jedi Council. Anakin was very relieved and thankful. It was a title he had yearned for forever. He couldn't believe he was finally a Jedi Master, but he took on the rank and title with honor, and decided to remain a Jedi. It would take time for the people to fully grasp the decisions of the Jedi Council and Order, but they would see, especially as years went by, that it was for the betterment of the galaxy. While Anakin kept his life secret, he enjoyed the best of both worlds, the family life that he always longed for, and the adventure of a Jedi Master, as he and the Order led the galaxy into the Outer Rim. It would be the freedom that so many desired, and finally, after so long, were able to achieve. A freedom equally shared from Tatooine to Coruscant, and a balance finally brought to the Force. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to our patrons: Benjamin Wells, M, Django Fett Clone, Nick 5098, INTJ Recluse, Ben Ingram, The Big Red Pure Mark, Diamond Constant, Darth Nemesis, Lord Tibbs, CC2024, Galvin Gaming, Tristan Mandalore, Sir Realm 1767, Darth Revan, Granddaddy Ban, Laliand, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Rooney, Shark Midori, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlanger, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewu670, Annika Stank Runner, CT75CC7, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Knox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tem, Johnny Naguin, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Cali, Galaxy66, Man Studios, Anakin003, Lord Draken, Fortis Legacy Star Wars, Airbus, Rex the Wolf, The Man with the First Names, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button, support more otherwise, check out the Patreon, other things on there. Let's talk about this story. So I really wanted the emphasis of the story to be on the master and apprentice relationship between Obi Wan and Anakin. That was really why I wanted to spend so much time with them throughout the story. I think they're just kind of the center of the story, and I think that bond would have really saved Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. And I wanted it to be that Anakin wasn't present for the whole Palpatine sequence, but I also wanted it to be that they were still doing something useful, which was hunting down General Grievous. And I do believe Grievous would think he could kill them in their sleep, and then being Grievous, the twisty mustache villain, as Lucas liked to call him, would, of course, be defeated. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.